Well, all right. Welcome, friends. Happy Monday. It's a bit of a, if you like money, it's a tough day. Unless I think anybody that saw my tweet, generational wealth is on sale. Unless maybe we should all buy actual tractors. It's hard to tell which one we should do, but we're all gonna make it. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a nice weird full circle 360 degree 720 and I go back to being an actual farmer again. Who knows? But well, I'll be doing streams on how to plant carrots this time next year. Who knows? I'm a man of many talents. That would be very weird. Yeah, well, if I actually go back to gardening, you can be absolutely certain I will be growing zero actual kale. It's a garbage vegetable. The world is weird. Okay, let's talk about AI today. So I gave some. This may be a repeat for some folks, but I'm not going to get tired of talking about it anytime soon. I really do enjoy. I love a good AI project. And this most recent wave here with the model context protocol, y'all can see my screen, right? I'm trying a new streaming method. They gave me a choice that said this one was better for screen shares, which slows down the FPS and makes text clearer, apparently. I swear Discord adds new screen sharing features every single week. Their team ships. All right, well, let me know if it ever doesn't look good. Model context protocol. It's aiming to solve a particular issue with LLMs, or really like AI in general, where you've got lots of different neat things that AI can do, but when it goes to like reaching outside just the LLM into the greater internet or start to engage other services, it's all to date been very bespoke. Each individual service has to like plug in its own mechanic for exposing its features to the LLM. And this model context protocol aims to solve that disparity by bringing in a protocol where everybody agrees on the best way to bring in tools and templates and resources to the LLM so that all of these services are speaking the same language and can interact with each other. It's very, very cool. It's very, very new. So you probably, if you've been paying attention to AI stuff at all, you probably have heard of MCPs. Maybe you've played around with one or two or followed it a little bit. But Cloudflare really is leading the charge here and is a big-time Cloudflare fanboy. I was very early to jump on this and start building out some MCP servers. Traditionally, or maybe early on when MCP was kind of first coming out, all of these servers were local servers where you would have had to stand something up on your local environment, all of the environment variables. It was just for you and your machine and your LLM, which is cool. But if you're trying to build a larger service, whether it's to monetize it or just to make it available to more folks, there wasn't really a way to do that. They didn't have the MCP didn't have any sort of auth standards. So there wasn't really a way to stand up a remote MCP server. They have been working on that, and that's kind of where Cloudflare comes in and says, we're going to take the OAuth standard, and we're going to take our serverless infrastructure, combine those things together to make remote MCP servers that can hold state, that can do all the things that a Cloudflare server can do, but exposed to this MCP model context protocol. And feel free to ask questions all along the way. If I breeze over something that you're like, I don't know what an AI is, or if I skip something or use terminology that you're unaware, feel free to ask questions. There are no stupid questions, only stupid people who should have asked more questions. So feel free. So they put out a post, Cloudflare did, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about these MCP remote servers and some example repos that they have. So I immediately jumped on this and built one and have since been kind of modifying it, particularly with with the Stellar stack, making an MCP server that exposes a lot of the Stellar related stuff. And I've just been playing around with it. It's been very fun, and I wanted to share some of that and expose a very cool, I think it's relatively well known, but maybe not in depth enough, a feature of the Stellar, the smart contract protocol, in exposing their like comments and how that can like superpower these MCPs and AI models with contract invocation information or contract information in general inside of these LLMs. Okay, so that was the Cloudflare piece of this. They've got, if you go to GitHub, Cloudflare AI, they've got their repository that's just got a bunch of these really good demos. So I've built one off of the remote MCP GitHub OAuth. I built one off of that. The one we're going to be looking at today is this remote MCP server, which kind of stubs in an OAuth backend, which is a little bit easier to fiddle with, especially for demos and stuff. And ultimately, our authentication is really the Stellar network components, like who owns what key. So it's not really dependent. I guess the issue, if there is one, is that the MCP protocol itself requires the use of OAuth endpoints to actually authenticate between the LLM chatbot, if that's what you're using, and the MCP backend. So because that's how they communicate, you have to use those endpoints for now. But in our case, we'll just kind of stub them in and then use a wallet, transaction signatures and stuff to actually provide any further authentication. There's also maybe another one worth calling out. If you just look up awesome MCP, I think there's a couple of these awesome MCP servers, and one called mcpservers.org, which I think lists out a whole bunch of these. But there's a ton of them. Like, okay, this is kind of new, but if you look at what's available, there's a ton of these MCP servers, which you can then tie together. And now, because they're all speaking the same language, you can immediately begin having these things talk back and forth with each other and send information, interact with each other. Really, really cool stuff. It becomes really really trivial to like build out flows between these different, what used to be disparate servers. Now the LLM serves as the logical glue between all of these things, where you can just, in real simple English terms, build up applications, databases, file systems, and then have it communicate with completely separate services like GitHub and Google Sheets. You can take a Google Sheet and have that feed into a notes-taking app, or feed into your database, or you can go from a database to a Google Analytics dashboard, or to a Google Numbers page and build out a graph for it. Some really, really cool stuff that's possible because all of these services are now talking in the same language. Really neat stuff. I really like the one from Superbase. I feel like they kind of have led the way on like the, ironically, it looks like maybe it's, can you search this? Cloud services. I bet that's where it is. I don't see it, but Superbase has an MCP server where you can actually like build applications. Cloudflare does this too, where you can actually interact with Cloudflare. So you can, from an LLM, build Cloudflare services, which is pretty wild. So you put this into something like Cursor, which has MCP support. If you've heard of Cursor, it's a very similar IDE to VS Code. Actually uses the same backend. Let me pull this in over here. Very similar to VS Code, but on the side, it's just got this window where you can chat. If you've used GitHub Copilot, it's really similar to that in VS Code. But Cursor has support for these MCP servers. Go to Cursor settings. This is probably outrageously tiny. You get the little MCP. I've got Stellar Smart running in the side. So it's got a bunch of these tools. We'll get into this in just a minute, but it has tools available to it. So you just stand up a bunch of these MCPs, and then all of these services can start talking to each other in the same language. So instead of like hoping that it gets the arguments and types and all that stuff right, you have an interface where these things can talk to each other in very specific terms, which is amazing. The one that I'll be using is Claude, which is a little bit more like Perplexity or ChatGPT. Let me pull this one up. Make a new chat over here. So this is the one I'll be using for our demo today. It's just a desktop app similar to like ChatGPT or something like that. Oh, I'm going to use this one so it goes a little faster, 3.5. Which you might have used Claude 3.5 if you've done any AI stuff. Their model's really good at coding. Okay, so that's MCPs and the different MCP servers. We're going to be writing our own today using Cloudflare. Again, we're working off of that example that I got from Cloudflare AI, Cloudflare/AI off of GitHub. And we'll be just kind of building and deploying initially locally, but the nice thing about these Cloudflare ones is you can deploy them remotely, and then everybody can use them, which is super cool. Let me go ahead and shut down this side. Let's take a gander through the project structure. Here we've got so this is like a basic Cloudflare project. You've got your Wrangler, which Wrangler is the Cloudflare CLI tool, and you just kind of configure your project with the different services that it's going to need access to. This all comes kind of pre-filled. You might have some variables you'll need to put in there. Maybe some durable objects if you're fiddling with the durable object stuff, which I certainly am for my databases and just storage. You could use key values or other databases. They've got all kinds of file storage. Cloudflare's got just loads of great services now. So that's that one. I've also got, so then you've got like environment variable folders, my package JSON, obviously. Most of the rest of this stuff will get either configured for you or just comes in for free. The source directory is where we'll spend most of our time. I do want to point out I don't need this image directory, so I'll delete that. Is the extension directory. This is one that I created where I put in my TypeScript bindings for my different Cloudflare contracts. I'm sorry, for my Stellar contracts, Cloudflare contracts. Oh boy, they're going to launch their L1. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to put in our Stellar contracts. I also was fiddling and found some different bugs. A lot of times when I'm building stuff, I find bugs in the JS SDK. So I usually just pull this in and then edit it however I need and then make PRs. And the nice thing is you just put in the extension directory and then you can link to it from here if you need to. I think I'm not using it right now because I wanted to test the one that got patched, 13.2, after I found some issues that I wanted solved. And the other one is the Stellar XDR JSON, which if you were not aware, we have a Stellar XDR JSON library, which allows you to do like XDR guessing, like what type of XDR is this, or decode this XDR from XDR into JSON. But it actually uses, is the source in here? Yeah, I think so. Oh, no, it's not. I think I just have the XDR. Or the component here. Let me see if I can find that. Maybe, Elliot, you can look up that repo really quick and link it so that I can click on it. The Stellar XDR JSON from our library. It's a super cool library, but it's written in Rust, and then it's exposed through bindgen WebAssembly. It's like how most other programs take something in Rust and make it like take something that is intended to communicate, like an Objective-C or anything that's composable down to WebAssembly. Usually you use bindgen to make that exposed through some sort of static API to the front end, to JavaScript. And this is what's happening with this project as well. Thank you. Let me pull this up for us. That's exactly the right one. So inside of source, you'll notice the librs, and then you'll see some wasm bindgen stuff, including guess, which will guess the type. If you give it a XDR base string, it'll guess what the type is and give you that a list of the different types that it might be. If you do decode, it will turn a base 64 into a JSON object, which is what we're going to do for our project. You can also do encoding, where you give it JSON and it'll turn it into base 64. So pretty amazing. It does require that you use obviously this program requires you be compatible with whatever you're trying to use is compatible with using this bindgen library, but bindgen has pretty good widespread support for different targets. But maybe a little bit of a learning curve if you're not used to using this. For what it's worth, this also isn't new. This has been around for quite some time. But I know for myself, a good example of this is laboratory. If you put in XDR here, and you've noticed it like gives you like best guess information down here, the lab is using this tool to do the guessing for when you put in XDR, what type it might be. So pretty amazing. You might have used this in the CLI, which doesn't use the JavaScript version, obviously, but Stellar, is it XDR? Yeah. Decode and encode XDR uses this base library of obviously not the JS version. I think there's a Rust version of this, just plain Rust, or a CLI version of this, where you can do guess, decode, encode, those types of things. So right inside your Stellar CLI, if you weren't aware, there's an XDR guesser, decoder, encoder, comparer. Pretty neat. Yeah, RS Stellar. Look at Elliot cruising, saving us all a bunch of time. So an amazing library. Definitely want to have that in your tool belt for any time you're ever fiddling with XDR, which if you're a Sorbonne developer, you certainly will be. All right, but that's not what we're here to discuss. But this is in there because we need to import this WASM file and then the types file for when we're exporting, and I'll get to where that actually is used in a moment. The rest of this project is pretty basic. We have an app directory, and this is something that's for Cloudflare. It doesn't have to be called app, but just is exposing all of the endpoints. These endpoints are specific to OAuth, so we're not going to fiddle with this. This is all written by Cloudflare, their example project, so I'm not going to touch any of that. Utils, same thing. There's a lot of HTML here that shows all the demo OAuth pages and whatnot. Apparently has a bunch of types, Tailwind, maybe just raw CSS, I guess, which is great. But again, won't fiddle with any of that. The files that we're most interested in are index and then the supporting files for a couple other components. So let's go up to the top here. This init, just so that we're not confused, this init has nothing to do with what we're doing. This is just for the Stellar XDR JSON thing to initialize that WebAssembly file. So don't get confused. That's not anything to do with our project. That's just to get this WebAssembly file loaded up and ready to go. When things start to get interesting is inside of this MCP agent class that we spin up. We spin up an MCP server. This comes from a Cloudflare. Oh no, this comes from the Model Context Protocol, but Model Context Protocol and Cloudflare are working closely together with different libraries to support building out remote MCP servers. I'm not going to walk through this line by line, and I'm actually going to hide this component for now. I'll hide a few of these and really focus in on the set wallet, get wallet, and deploy token. These are the ones, if you've watched any of the videos that I've done recently, those are the ones that most of mine are using. To get this spun up and started, we're going to run our script here to just Wrangler develop this. Cloudflare's just got really good local dev tooling. I'm not in the right project here, so I need to grab this and pop it in here and big enough in it. P npm run start. Okay, we've got this running on 8787. We can see some messages coming in, and this is just coming from my Claude, which is already spun up over here. Starts sending like liveness messages. I will say this is all very new, so you will absolutely find times when things break and weird things are happening, and a lot of times you just need to kill the server and start it back up again. Because there's authentication happening, there will be times when you actually need to clear like the session tokens or what have you, and those all live if you go to MCP auth. They all live inside of here. So sometimes I just closed it again, or I moved it. I shouldn't have CD'd. I should have made a new tab. Sometimes you'll want to delete that directory. Remove rf MCP auth, which will probably break the whole rest of my demo, but maybe not. pnpm run start 87. We can see this pop up because I cleared all of my data. We can also see that we get 6 of them for some reason. I think that's a bug with something. I think it's like reloaders that if it doesn't, I'm not sure. Reloaders that if it hasn't authorized, it goes ahead and spins up a bunch more. I have no idea. It's a weird bug somewhere in there. So I'm just going to prove one of these, and hopefully that hellish cycle will end and I won't have to have these popping up all over the place again. Looks like it doesn't. Let's see what happens when we refresh. We get another one of these. Let's approve. We let it sit there for a minute. It should reload, and then we get our tools. So this inside of this MCP init, this is an important init. This one here, this is like inside of my MCP. If we call this something else, we'll get an error that the interface hasn't been satisfied. So we need to actually call that init. And this is what gets called whenever an MCP server loads up into some other Claude or Cursor or wherever. And this is what loads up all of the server features. So like I mentioned, there are a couple of different things an MCP server can do. It needs to be this .server. It can give you prompts, which is like a template for different prompt windows to give it context and stuff. So there's some consistency in how prompts for this particular MCP work. You can also load up static resources, which is really valuable. Maybe not for the Stellar one, but if you're loading up static resources for like a report or just some static data or, I don't know, graphic information, you can put this information in there and will help you whenever you're like starting a new conversation. It can load up that resource. This could be like docs or, a big piece of data that helps inform the rest of the conversation. And then obviously the one that I'm most interested in is tools. And this is giving access for the model, the LLM, to actually do things. And then what it can do is based off of the arguments that you pass to tools. So let's look at one of these. Let's look at set wallet. So first you give it a name, set wallet. That name is important just because, again, you're thinking about the LLM and what will help it to trigger that tool based off of keywords and information that's coming from the actual chat. It will infer from information in the chat when it's time to actually call the tool. So if I include things like set wallet, when it hears the words set, wallet, address, synonyms maybe for set or wallet, it might think it's time to use this. The description is also probably the better place to put this information that can help the LLM clue into when it's time to use this tool. Next, and critically important, is the arguments that the tool will receive or expect to be sent from the LLM. So in this case, there's a wallet, and it will be of type string, and you can give it a little description so that the LLM could prompt the user, hey, what wallet do you actually want to set for this? Give me the address that you want to set for this wallet that I'm going to use when I call set wallet on the Stellar wallet address. It's using Zod to help with types and also typing in your actual program. So I know when wallet comes back, because I use Zod, this will already be set to a wallet type string, which can be really helpful when calling it throughout the rest of your application. So those are the arguments and then the actual function call. So what the tool can actually do. In my case, it's going to save the address for the user who's currently logged in. Thank you, Cloudflare, for giving us user accounts through OAuth. Where we can actually assign users to begin to save user information and memory and context that'll be very valuable. And then you give it a return, and this is kind of where some of this protocol comes into play, where it needs a type. It needs to be this content. It's an array of content. It will be of type text. And then the text is actually just this string output. And rather than, for me, in my case, rather than just sending it wallet, I like to include a little bit of additional context information, which again can clue into the LLM as to, well, what just happened when we set the wallet? The wallet address was set to this, which can be really helpful in the context of the LLM when it wants to use this wallet address at some point in the future. So sometimes rather than just sending it a static wallet address, it may be better to give it more full context. Almost more like an error message or a success message than just the return information. which is kind of an interesting way to think about programming. Okay, what does this do though? This is one of those really nice Cloudflare components. There are these durable objects, which is basically a JavaScript class or object that you can save information to. It's unbelievably powerful as a service, but you can attach these functions or methods to it. They're all put inside this store do or durable object file here. I've got another class, the Stellar MCP store. I'm actually spinning up a bunch of SQL tables. These are SQLite tables. So I've got one of addresses, I've got one of contracts, which we'll use. You can set up all these methods on this class and then begin to use things like SQL to store and delete and insert and update information in the SQL. There's lots of other things a durable object can do. I've used durable objects for years and years, doing all of like the games and stuff. They're amazing pieces of technology. Definitely encourage folks looking into this. And as of today, Cloudflare is doing their developer week. Durable objects are now included in the free tier for Cloudflare, which is amazing. Not that like Cloudflare is $5 a month to start paying for all of these services, and I have not spent much more than that in my many years building heavily used experiments and demos. I very rarely spend much on Cloudflare, so I highly recommend starting to explore some of these things. These are amazing pieces of technology for storing stuff and building out really quick examples. And now, because it's all connected to MCP, you could go to Cursor and just build your own Cloudflare tool, which uses durable objects really, really easily. Pretty amazing. Anyway, we have a stub here. So this is basically attaching ourselves to an instance of this durable object. It comes from name. If you gave it a different name, it would be a different instance of the same class, but with new storage. So if you wanted a different user ID. So for example, the MCP actually is a durable object. And every time a new instance is stood up, so like a new chat, you get a whole new instance of this durable object. And so like the memory is clear, the history is clear, all the tools are fresh. And so you can store individual sessions, individual chats, all on a new durable object. But then if you want memory to be saved between chats, like I do here setting the user wallet, you could use your own other durable object or a key value store or another database, whatever you would want. But that's what's happening in this particular method, is it's just saving the address for the user, which I guess I could set this to wallet, but whatever. Don't know what I changed, but I just saved it, so we'll rip. Let's see what happens. All right, we'll refresh. We get our tool back. Now, how do you connect an MCP server? You'll remember when I loaded this up, we got that localhost 8787 right here. And so if you go to Claude settings, oh goodness, doesn't let this one grow. Squint, everybody, squint. There's a developer section here. This will be empty for you before you set up anything, and you hit edit config. It brings up this file. You can just drag that into your code editor, and then you get this JSON file, which allows you to attach some MCP servers. It's an object. You give it names. Then you have a command. I'm going to use this MCP remote, which is a tool kind of in the interim while MCP is developing. Well, Anthropic, which develops MCPs or built the MCP. There's this interim tool while they're working on the OAuth, finalizing the OAuth spec. There's this interim tool called MCP Remote, which you can use to actually connect to remote MCP servers with the OAuth standard. Give it the URL here, localhost 8787. The connection point is this SSE, which you could see, well, you'll see it in the docs for sure, but even right here, API route in this OAuth provider is single sign-on endpoint. So we'll save that once we've connected it. If you use Cursor, exact same thing. There may be some differences depending on which one you use, but at least Cursor and Claude were identical. So I'll connect those. If you had other ones, you would just add another key value pair. Close that up. We refresh this. You might have to, sometimes Claude will have a hard time refreshing the Command R, Control R. At that point, you just close the project or close the app and open it back up again. There we go, 6 tools. Every now and then you just got to toss it. Okay, yeah, who knows what the 401 unauthorized is. But we can look at those tools. There is a tool, I haven't found it to be very useful, or it hasn't worked very well for me, called the inspector from the Model Context Protocol, and you can run it with just npm run MCP. I can go ahead and run this really quick. npm run MCP. It gives you another server that looks at this. Oh, we get a new one, 8.2. They are patching these really quick. Like they came out with 8.1 like 2 days ago, and 0.8 4 days ago. So this is a very quickly developing. It's like the early days of Sorbonne. You may remember those, where it was like every 2 days we had a new spec, a new tool set. So if you go over here, make sure you're connected to the right URL and you're on SSC, not STDIO. Click connect. It should open up this. We'll approve that. It should do an automatic callback, and we're connected. We list our tools and we can see all of our tools. And this allows you, instead of having to use an LLM to like type things out, you can just directly call each of the tools. It's supposed to be a good debugger. But I have found that when you use it, more often than not, something in this server bugs and crashes, and then you have to restart everything, and so it just doesn't work very well. I've found Claude to be far more consistent. So that's the one we're going to use, but you do have access to it, so you can fiddle with it. Maybe you'll have better mileage than I will. Maybe by the time you go to play with it, they'll be on 1.0, and everything will be fine. Who knows? The first thing I want to do, though, is call set wallet. Before we get to fiddling with anything else, right, we're going to need wallets to interact with the network. So a good place to start is setting your wallet. I'm going to use Super Peach for this. This is like the best smart wallet right now, and that should shame any wallet developer in the audience. We need better smart wallets, and we need them now, because Super Peach, as much as we love it, is ugly. And I want a pretty one. But it's what we're going to use for now. So I'm going to say set, I just copied that Super Peach wallet, set wallet address to this. And the nice thing is, like, you don't have to use keywords. You can kind of say whatever you want, and it'll hopefully get the right idea. You can see that it's running set wallet from the smart wallet tool. I'm going to allow for this chat, hashtag security. Wallet address has been set to that. That's great. I'm going to use speech to text because it's faster. Great, thank you. Would you mind reading back my wallet just to ensure that it actually said it? Said it. But LLMs are smart. It'll know what it means. Allow for this chat. And you can see it's calling get wallet. And there it is. Wallet address is set to this, which is exactly what I want. That's great. So we've gone ahead and used both of these tools, both the set wallet and the get wallet. You'll notice the get wallet calls that get address from the user's email and returns the wallet address is this. You'll notice that there is this secret key component here, and that's because with each of these addresses, I actually store a random G address, which we're going to use in a moment when we start to interact with external contracts, where we're going to use an additional signer where things don't have to be reviewed. You can just sign them transparently. Well, I won't explain it too much. We'll look at it in a moment. The next thing I want to do is deploy a brand new token. So this is using these new Open Zeppelin contracts. There's one called fungible pausable GitHub Open Zeppelin Stellar contracts. There's one. So if you look at these ones are amazing. Open Zeppelin was like, they were my heroes, like back in the day when they were building out all these contracts and I had no idea what to do. And I was just so thankful that there was somebody that was building nice, secure, audited, smart contracts. And to have them on the Stellar network is so cool for me. Anyway, we go to examples. There's one called fungible pausable, which is the one that I'm using in my example to deploy tokens. So if we go not to lib, if we go to the contract, you can see we get this fungible pausable. I'm also using cap, I think, on this. So it's a little bit modified. These are examples, remember, not full like templates. So you can modify these and add different functions. They've got some pretty good docs and comments on the interfaces and stuff. So you can edit, modify these as much as you want. They've got a good collection of these. I think I combined fungible pausable and fungible capped, with the idea being I just want to launch like meme tokens really quickly, but have them have a cap, have them be pausable for whatever reason. You could add upgradable, or they have different NFT standards for consecutive or renewable, which I guess would be non-fungible examples. So lots of cool contract work going on in here. Definitely a repo that you're going to want to watch and start fiddling with. These guys are great. Anyway, that's the one that I'm using when I deploy this new contract, and that's with this extension. Remember this fungible pausable SDK? So I deployed it, then built TypeScript bindings for it, and now I've got this nice TypeScript library for this fungible pausable, cappable, superable token contract, which I use. Then you'll see deploy new fungible pausable token. That comes from where I actually use that client in this fungible pausable file. We have to play a drinking game. Anytime I say fungible pausable, everybody do mushrooms. Just kidding. We use the client deploy, take some arguments. So it's using that constructor, that new-ish constructor function on Sorbonne to deploy us a new contract off of the WebAssembly file that we saved in our env. That's that fungible. Oh, everybody take mushrooms. Fungible pausable WASM hash that I deployed, installed into the network, uploaded, I think is what we call it now. So we just deploy a new contract, but we give it some of these different arguments, like the cap, the initial supply, the symbol, the name, and the admin address, etc., etc. And then if it's successful, we send it back the JSON. And if it's an error, we also send back JSON. So we actually don't really like throw an error. We send back the error so the LLM can actually read the error back to us and maybe suggest what we should do to fix it, which is great. I guess if you looked in here, you can see the deploy. There's not really a whole lot going on. We're using LaunchTube to send it, so the LLM doesn't have to fiddle with getting the user XLM or trying to sign up for yada yada. Just uses LaunchTube for that, which is amazing. All that's pretty standard, so nothing big and secret hiding in there. Let's go ahead and use that. Let's see, Elliot, where do you live again? We should get some meme-worthy news from the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. Look up meme-worthy news from St. Louis, Missouri, and generate a brand new meme token for me and deploy it. I'm using 3.7, so this might, I have noticed 3.7 is a little smarter, but it's also a little slower. Just like a real smart person. Ew! All right, we allow for this chat. You can see that it's got us some news. Who knows what it was? Looks like Blue Streak. Blues Streak. I have no idea. There you go. So we get a new Blues Streak with an initial supply and a cap. And it's going to deploy that off to the network for me. Great news! I've successfully deployed our new meme token based on St. Louis Blues record-breaking winning streak. Congratulations, by the way. So I used the deploy token. Didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to review. Didn't have to sign. Didn't have to get XLM. It's just on the network. If we looked up the transaction hash, we can look that up on something like Stellar Expert. It is on the test network in this case. There it is. We get a new streak. And I really want to read streak as stake, which I think probably means I'm dyslexic. Okay, so it gives us some more information. It says what the transaction hash was. Curious. Do you know what the contract ID was for this new token? Yes. All right. So there's the contract ID. We can look that up as well. And there we go. We got a new contract. It doesn't necessarily know. I think if we looked at the interface, we could probably decide, like, fine, oh, pause, unpause, total supply, balance, allowance. Okay, great. It's got all the things you would expect from a Stellar Asset Contract desk. I guess a fungible pausable token contract. Very good. And now I want to add. So we've deployed a new token. You could also look at this. One fun thing to do sometimes. Okay, you can see all of my wonderful meme tokens. on the test network. Let's go ahead and copy this one and load this one up, just because it's fun to see it in a G address, I guess, context. So if you go to the 3 dots on your account, you can go manage assets, add an asset, add manually, paste that in, and you should see asset not found. Did I get the right address? I might have pasted my contract address. That or something's bugged with Freighter's indexing. Manage assets, add an asset, add manually, paste. There we go, blue streak. Let's add it. So we've used these tools. The next thing I want to do is add a new contract address to the user. So this is basically allowing the user to track a specific contract and gain access to all of its methods. So in this case, we've got our new meme token. So I want to track, please start tracking this contract ID. See if it does set contract address. Yes, it does. We'll allow for this chat. So it'll give it a name, which makes sense, and the address, which was that one. Assuming that went through, success. Now we need to reload our tools. And then also there's some instructions for adding a policy signer for this user for this contract. I want to be able to do things like mint and burn and all these things that require authentication for this particular contract. I want to be able to do those things, but I don't really know how. There's no wallet inside of Claude. It's a desktop app. It's not a web app. Like how am I supposed to get signatures for these things? I guess maybe if it printed out the XDR, I could paste that into lab or something like that. That's so cumbersome. When you're going, you're in the flow inside your LLM, you'd like to kind of keep that flow. Well, you can do that really easily because we've got smart wallets, and you can do it in a non-custodial, safe way. So we're not actually going to cover that in this video today, but maybe in a later one we'll go into the details on how to actually add and then use these signing keys for this. But to keep this video nice and tight, we'll focus on just the contract components and then exploring the actual interface. Show me all of the contract addresses that I'm tracking. And that will call the get all contract addresses, which should list out all of these. We get this error. Sometimes we'll get this error when we need to refresh. This happens for whatever reason. It disconnects Claude from the local server. So then I can just try retrying. And hopefully that'll get me a list. Yes, it does. All right, we've just got the one. That's good. For now, we can look. So I've tracked these. The nice thing is, so what happens when you track an address inside of the tools, and this is kind of what I was talking about early on. There's only two other tools. One is just the remove contract address. So if you want to stop tracking an address, you can use that. The last one is this looping get contract. So I've got this inside my store. I've got that contracts table. That's where all the contracts get stored. And then I loop over all of those and dynamically build from those contract IDs. I get those contracts WASM by contract ID. That's an RPC method. Get contract WASM by contract ID. I then go from the WASM to build a new client. So on the fly, build myself a new JS SDK smart contract client. And then what I have inside of that on the fly client is the spec for that contract. Inside of that spec includes all of the functions that are available on that contract, what the function names are, and also what parameters, like arguments, they take, as well as the outputs that they have. Like the whole contract spec is baked into the contract itself, which allows you to dynamically build a whole contract like set of tools on a per contract basis. So you don't have to hard code all of these different contracts. You can basically put in any contract ID and immediately get its interface along with all the arguments that it takes. So what you'll notice, assuming that I got it right, I'm going to go ahead and close this and restart it just to give me the best chance of success. And then I click refresh on Claude. What I should notice is this tool will go from 6 to 6 plus all of the function types or function names that there are in this contract. So like mint and allowance and burn and transfer. And there we go, 21. So blue streak allowance, blue streak approve, balance, burn, burn from, decimals, mint, name. All of the contract methods are available as tools now without me having to code anything specific for that particular contract. And that's amazing. That's really, really cool. You'll also notice the documentation that comes with it. These are all comments that come right from the contract itself, because comments inside of the contract also get baked right onto the WebAssembly file. So when you provide comments to all of your contract functions, they will be provided right inside of the spec, which you can see I grab right here when I call the function doc and execute it to string. So it takes the documentation for each of those functions and makes it available, which is, again, that's amazing to be able to immediately have exactly what this function can do, what conditions under which the LLM should call it. And if I'd been able to actually get the signature added, I could do things like mint and burn, and it will immediately sign those transactions for me without me having to do any review, get XLM, anything like that. You can call read functions even without the signer. So I could do things like get me the total issued supply for this new token. And it will look up in that documentation which function is most likely going to be the one that I want to use to call the total supply. It thinks total supply is probably the one we want to use. I'd say good guess. It'll call that function and return. You'll notice that it returns it in this JSON format because JSON doesn't support big ints, which is one of the reasons we need to use that decode tool. Remember from up here? JSON XCR, I need to be able to go from an SC val to JSON. Big ints aren't there. Not, you can't decode those or encode those, I guess, to JSON. And so we convert that into this function. And then the LLM, being as smart as it is, can know exactly what this I-128 high-low value is and give me back information about this token. It also remembers the context that we're in and kind of reminds me about the information about the total supply, the cap, I guess, for the supply, and the total issued, which is amazing. Let's give another example really quick. Let's just grab a random contract. Blend's coming out with V2 soon, right? Very exciting. Let's go to testnet 2 contract and pull that in. Cool. Now track this contract as well. Call it blend V2. I'll track the additional contract, gives it a blend name V2 and gives it the address. Was that successful? Success. If I reload Claude, though, we should see this number go up from 21 up to include all of the blend V2 methods. We got 47. So we got a blend V2, bad debt, claim, delete auction, flash loan, get config. Call the blend V2 get config method and print that out for me. Maybe put it in a pretty table if you can. Let's see what that produces. I don't even know if get config is protected. I doubt it. Allow for this chat. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Backstop rate, maximum positions, minimum collateral, Oracle address, and the status. Pretty cool. You can immediately get all these functions and methods really easily and start to fiddle with it right inside of an LLM. I love that they use the word gulp. All right. Well, we are a little bit over time. I'll try and get this. I've got some of these bits and pieces. I've got a repo up here. I think it's the GitHub OAuth repo. I'm in the process of converting over to this one that's a little bit more generic. So I'll get that uploaded before too long. I'll try and figure out this Super Peach bug so that we can start actually signing things. It's amazing. It's really a really cool feeling when you start using it's like signing transactions, not having to review anything. It just does it, like doing transfers with your voice. It's a pretty wild experience to interact with blockchain tech. So I want to get that live so that people can fiddle with this. Again, works in Claude, works in Cursor. I think there was another one that supports MCP servers. I'm going to try this week to stand up a basic demo of this that you don't have to use any of these LLMs. There's a Playground AI that supports MCP servers. I think there's 2 of them. So you can kind of fiddle around with the Playground. This is the one I'm going to try and use to like build an interface kind of like this where you can automatically connect to one of these MCP servers, but I got to fiddle with that. So no promises, but that would be nice so that nobody had to like download Claude if they don't already use it, sort of a thing. But this stuff's super cool. And again, when you've got all of these different MCP servers, you could imagine like a disbursement platform, right? That you've just got a random Google CSV sheet and you say, take all of these and make a airdrop of my new token to all of these addresses. Or you could have the blend protocol pretty simply say, do a rebalance of my portfolio between the most profitable assets. Or, I mean, there's really powerful stuff you can do because you can tie all of these different services and tools together, where the LLM, instead of the LLM being like the tool, it just serves as this like English logical communication glue between all of these different services. That's an amazing future. I'm very optimistic that more AI services and tools will implement either the MCP or an MCP-like service, or it becomes really simple for all of these API service providers to allow LLMs to have access to actually do things on their service through LLM context. Would be amazing. All right, I'm going to scroll back through. I don't think we have. I've kind of been keeping an eye on here for any questions. Let's launch some memes on Stellar. 100%. Trade them on Rant Me Daddy. I would love for something like that to happen. Kale to the moon, baby. And get some more fun things to do on chain. I'm all about that. There's so many fun things that we should be doing, that we can be doing, and it's a good time, a really good time to build on Stellar. I don't know if you guys have paid attention how much you track this thing. I always feel like I always start with this, and it's a good place to start, so maybe I'll end with it today. If anybody's paying attention, we hit a new all-time high yesterday for invocations. And if you'll notice, this blue bar is starting to pick up. Way back in the day when we were like, oh my gosh, Kale's popping off. We're now starting to hit like those numbers for other, which is awesome. Now, is this Elliot's tractor? Probably. But 10,000 of it? I mean, that means they're still hitting 20K. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome. We're starting to see more activity on the blue side of things. So let's see this number go up. I mean, Kale's awesome. I love new all-time highs. But I'd love to see a rainbow of colors. Lots of different contracts getting invoked and pushing this number through the roof. But these are good numbers. I love optics. I love good optics. And you go to Dune and you're like, what's going on right now in the Stellar world? Are they still, doing low numbers? Oh my goodness, they're popping off. That's a good metric. We've got 11 million invocations, highest single day invocations. I mean, those are good numbers. I'm proud of those numbers. We've been putting in work, you guys, on getting Stellar used like it deserves. All right, well, you guys have a fantastic rest of the week. Enjoy building. Enjoy the change of seasons if you have them where you're at. Otherwise, look at a flower, even if it has to be an 04 ChatGPT model of one. Flowers are pretty. Enjoy the spring in whatever form you need to. And we will see you guys around the Discords, the interwebs. Appreciate you all. Have a fantastic week.